and we will make this meeting available to everyone. Unfortunately, we do not have closed captioning for this meeting. Peter Brown, I see your question. She postponed her live stream, which was last night. Tonight, we're doing the Howard Terminal Town Hall. Now, I think Carol is with us, but no, I do not see her. We're just waiting for her to join, and then we'll get started. Hi, everyone. I'm going to go off video for just a couple of minutes and just to call Councilmember 5. Hold on.
Everybody hear me okay?
Yay. Okay, so yay. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for all of the technical difficulties. We were trying to get Councilmember 5 on. So hi, everyone. My name is Tanya Love. I'm Councilmember 5's Chief of Staff. Carol, just briefly say hi.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to get started. I'm going to share my screen. What's going to happen is we're going to have a brief presentation, but I'm going to let everyone know what the ground rules are. So hopefully I will share my screen. Okay. Yay. All right, so welcome to the District 3 Howard Terminal Town Hall Part 2. What's going to happen tonight? So as you know, as some of you should know, or a lot of you might not know, but basically the Howard Terminal final environmental impact report was released sometime in December. And after that, there was a planning commission meeting this month, and the planning commission meeting approved of the FEIR, and they recommended that it goes to council. And so it's going to be coming to council pretty soon. So Council Member Fife wanted to have another opportunity to hear from constituents in District 3. And so what we're doing is this virtual town hall. What's going to happen is Council Member Fife's going to have a couple minutes just to say hi and welcome. I'm going to give a presentation just to describe what the Howard Terminal Project is. Then we're going to have a question and answer period for about 10-20 minutes. Hopefully we will have a representative from city staff who will be able to help us answer some questions. During that time, you should, or up between now and during that time, type in your questions in the chat. We will have a staff member who will read those questions. After the question and answer period, then we're going to have an opportunity for everyone to have 1 minute to speak. What you will do is you will raise your hand, and then I will unmute you. Then you have 1 minute to speak. I'm going to ask you guys to just, keep it classy, no yelling, no profanity, and, my own personal wish, no disparaging of Brussels sprouts, because Brussels sprouts are great. I think everyone should eat them. So no talking about Brussels sprouts. But seriously, let's all keep it classy. This is your opportunity to talk to Councilmember Fife and tell her how you feel, but you only have 1 minute because we want to allow as many people as possible to speak. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to allow Councilmember Fife to say a few words, and then I'll get started.
Well, thank you all for being here. I know there are a lot of familiar faces that I see, and I'm excited to really hear from folks. And 1 minute is really not enough to hear what folks have to say. So I will be leaving my email and cell phone for folks. If you want to talk to me directly and you want to have like a full-fledged conversation, I will find time between now and when the FEIR comes to City Councils to have that conversation with you all, because this is literally probably one of the biggest projects coming to Oakland that we've seen in a long, long time. Some say to Northern California. So the decisions that I make around the Howard Terminal development are not decisions that I make lightly. So I want as much information from District 3 residents and businesses as possible. So I want to make that clear that there's not enough time for us on this particular call. So I'll just be doing a lot of listening. And I wanted to give just some updates from the city side on where things are. But I don't want to take up a bunch of time talking about that. Glad to see y'all here. So let's get into the discussion.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Councilmember Fife. So also what I'm going to recommend is so that way everyone can have as much, internet juice or, whatever they needed to be able to see and hear everything. I recommend, if you're not speaking, to go ahead and turn your video off. I believe that you're here, and I believe that you guys are all beautiful and everything, but it's easier, and make sure that you have full internet connection. If you're not speaking, you can turn your video off, and that way everyone will have a chance to hear what's being said. So I'm going to give a description of the Howard Terminal project and what's happened so far. And so some of it's going to be review for a lot of you who've been in the trenches and been, really involved in this project. But we did a survey. Some of you filled out a little survey form to come. And there are a lot of people who had no idea what's going on with the Howard Terminal. Aaron, I see your hand raised. I'm going to wait till the question and answer period to start answering questions. Okay. But feel free to put your question in the chat. Okay. So some of it's going to be review, but some of it is not, because there's going to be some people in here who haven't heard anything about it. So please be patient with me as we go through it, but I'm going to try to be as quick as possible. Okay. First, Howard Terminal Project. For those of you who don't know anything about the Howard Terminal Project at all, I highly encourage you to go to the City Council's website. It's up here, but I'm going to actually escape from my PowerPoint presentation and go to the website really quick, because I think you guys should see what's there if you've never been. Okay, so if you Google Oakland Waterfront Ballpark District, you will be able to find this webpage. And in it, it has a lot of information. It has the project description, it has the background. There's some FAQs, frequently answered questions, you can find here. There's a gallery of pictures, which I'll probably show in my presentation, so I'm not going to linger here. There's a lot of documents dating back from 2020, all here for you to download. All the public meetings since December 2018, there are links to here that you can see. Okay, and then on the side, you can see other related pages, the FAQs, you can see the ballpark district, community benefits. There was a community benefits group that met for a period of time. There's information about that group here. There's a Howard Terminal Transportation Plan that was posted January 20th, 2020. There's email for a staff person if you have questions that you want to email. All of this can be found on the website. Please visit it, look up information. The EIR is here. Share with your friends. There's no reason to not have information because it's there at your fingertips. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my presentation. But I am going to do a little brief of the project description, right? So this project is basically, they're going to build a 35,000 person capacity stadium for the Oakland Athletics. It's going to be used up 1.7 million square feet of commercial development. They're going to have up to 3,000 residential dwelling units, so people can live near the ballpark. They're going to build a new hotel. It's going to have like 400 rooms. It's going to have a new performance venue with a capacity of approximately 3,500 individuals. It's going to be huge. It's going to be big. It's going to be amazing. That's what they're selling. Okay. So in August of 2021, the City Council was presented with a term sheet that city staff has negotiated with the A's. Now, this was kind of like a draft term sheet, and these are some of the things that are in that term sheet, just kind of a beginning of a negotiation phase, so to speak. So the A's propose that they're going to pay for the ballpark itself. That's what they're going to pay for. They say they are going to pay for the upfront cost of the infrastructure around the ballpark. So like the sewer, the electric lines, maybe building some streets. They're going to do those upfront costs. But what they really would like to see happen is that the city and Alameda County establish what's called an infrastructure finance district. And that is going to be paid for by property taxes that will result as the ballpark being built. So right now we have a certain level of property taxes revenue coming into the city just because of Jack London Square. Whatever restaurants are there, whatever stores are there, whatever, venue is that Jack London Square right now, the city is giving property tax revenue. But since they are proposing to build a stadium there, they're saying that the property tax revenue is going to increase. So they're asking the city to use that property tax money that is going to come in simply because the ballpark's going to be there, and use it to reimburse the A's for the upfront costs of the ballpark. Third, they're going to have there's going to be a cost for the off-site transportation infrastructure. Off-site meaning the surrounding areas, the infrastructure needed to make sure that people can get to the ballpark. So there's going to be an estimated cost of $352 million to make this happen. But this is not going to be covered by the A's either. But what they've said is that they will help the city raise the money for this off-site transportation infrastructure. The A's in the term sheet will have the right to develop the project in accordance to a development agreement that has yet to be finalized with the city. The development agreement will be for 35 years, and it will start in 2025 unless there's some litigation, but no more than 4 years after potential litigation. The A's are supposed to stay in Oakland for 25 years as a result. Now, the actual development agreement or the lease is 66 years, but the A's are saying that they would like the option to opt out after 25 years. However, if there is outstanding debt, they have to pay the outstanding debt no matter when they leave. Affordable housing. So as I told you, they plan to build housing on the site, 3,000 supposed units. What they're going to do is have 35% on-site and off-site of affordable housing. Now, on-site, they're going to have 15% affordable housing. And there's going to be a fund of $50 million used to prevent displacement on-site, meaning they're going to use that $50 million to make 20% of it even more affordable, and making sure maybe there's some rent subsidies or something like that, tenant services for impacted neighborhoods. But that's what the $50 million is going to go towards. And they're committing to 15% of affordable housing on site. Port jobs. Okay, so the port jobs are under the jurisdiction of the Port of Oakland. And what they've said is, according to the 2017 Port of Oakland jobs policy, they're going to prioritize jobs for the unemployed, veterans, single parents, ex-offenders, foster care, and they're going to ban the box. Second, there's going to be a community fund established to support whatever community benefits are coming from this project. Now, this fund is, again, not going to be paid for by the A's. It's going to be paid for by various other funds, like a set aside from that infrastructure finance district that I talked to you about, maybe some of the transfer fees from condo sales. There's a port social justice fund, but whatever that community fund is not being paid for by the A's. And then finally, they are thinking about and having an oversight committee. The city administrator and the city attorney is going to analyze it and see about the establishment of that. So next, the city of Oakland right now is currently still working on the term sheet and hashing out a development agreement. That's going to be forthcoming pretty soon. Okay. So for those of you who haven't seen it, this is the project site. This is Jack London over here where my arrow is. You can literally kind of walk to the project site. This is Jack London Square. This is the Ferry Building. And this huge site right here is where they're going to build the Howard Terminal project. Over here is Schnitzer Steel. This is Union Pacific, the railroad tracks, just right there. And then inside that shape is where they're going to build the Howard Terminal. Project. Let me go back. Sorry. This is the stadium. There's going to be some more commercial development all around here. Some of it's going to be housing, some of it's going to be parking, the hotels, everything that they're looking for. But this is the new park space that they're looking at, where you can look out and have nice cozy walks with your friends and your family. This is going to be the stadium. It's going to be great. They're going to keep a couple of the cranes there. And then here is the wonderful version of, you know, the visual of what it's going to look like. The stadium, the park space, high rise, high rise, high rise, high rise, another high rise. Some of these are going to be housing. Some of these are going to be hotel space. This is the Ferry Building. People are going to take a ferry across the bay, San Francisco. It's going to be beautiful. All right. So the environmental impact report. The environmental impact report is looking at all the possible impacts that this development is going to have on our environment. In 2018, the city of Oakland put out a notice saying that they're going to do an environmental impact report, and they put out, there was a 45-day period where anyone can send questions, make comments. There was 2 public meetings where people were able to submit questions at the public meeting, the Land Preservation Advisory Board and the Planning Commission in 2018. Then in January 2019, that public comment period ended, and that between January 2019 and February 2021 is where the city was working on answers to those questions. In February of 2021, they released what's called the draft EIR, which was public, and that had another public comment period, which ended in April 27th. And then they drafted the final EIR, which was completed in December. And in January of this year, the Planning Commission reviewed it and decided to bring it to council, put it forward to council. And so the next step is the city council will be certifying it. I want to talk about some of the engagement that Councilmember Fife has done since she's been in office. Oops, excuse me. We did a survey in spring of 2021 after the draft EIR was released. We held an in-person town hall at a church in West Oakland. We heard comments from there. We also heard that our community benefit members had not been able to get a tour of the terminal. And so we hosted a tour in December. And now we did another community survey, which most of you had filled out. And I'm going to share with you the results of that survey. We also heard from lots of community organizations like the Alameda Labor Council, East Oakland Stadium Alliance, West Oakland Environmental Projects, West Oakland, WOCA, Oakland Chinatown, Oakland Chamber, Oakland Unite, ILWU, Jacqueline and BID, just a host of other people, but these are some of the samples of organizations that we've heard from. The survey, as of last night, which I know has grown since then, had over 117 comments. The majority of the comments came from District 3. Thank you, District 3, showing up. There's mixed reviews about whether or not they support Howard Terminal outright. A little over said yes, about 36%, 32% say no, and then there's a lot of maybes. I don't know, I'm unsure. But our top comments, mostly are concerned about infrastructure mitigation. We see a lot of people concerned about use of tax dollars on this project. And then also we've heard additional concerns about displacement of District 3 residents. People are concerned about the environmental impacts. People are concerned about displacement of port businesses. People are concerned that we seem to be prioritizing this big corporate business right now and not thinking enough about what the impact is going to be on Oakland, particularly West Oakland. And then finally, folks are concerned that there are not enough community benefits. Some sample comments. Concerns around traffic. How will additional traffic be directed? Where are people going to park? Particularly the West Oakland neighborhoods are really concerned about that parking. Also, Oakland Chinatown, really concerned about parking. What's going to be happening with that truck traffic? public-private dollars. Is this a good deal for Oakland right now? Should we be devoting so much tax dollars for a private benefit? People are concerned about West Oakland residents, particularly Black and API communities. We know that District 3 has already been gentrified. It's going to happen further. They're concerned about that. We're concerned that we're not getting enough community benefits from this deal, especially around affordable housing. Is 35% affordable housing enough? Is 15% on site enough? Finally, there are concerns about the jobs at the port. We're really concerned about what's going to happen with ILWU workers. And finally, folks are really concerned about sea level rise and other environmental impacts. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. Very brief, but I hope this gives some of you who just did not have any information about this, what's happening with the Howard terminal. So we're gonna do right now, we're gonna have some question and answer. I'm gonna look in the participants for our city staff person who said that she was gonna be here, but I don't see her. Oh, yeah. No, city staff, Jody. Jody is going to be looking at the questions in the chat, and she's going to be reading those questions. And I'm looking for our city staffer who will help us answer questions. There she is. I see you, Veronica. I'm going to unmute you so that way you can help us with some questions. Veronica?
Yes, can you
hear me? Barely hear you.
Hold on.
And then I'm going to unmute Council Member 5. There you go. Okay. All right, Jody, if you can do us the honors and ask us some questions.
Yeah, so feel free to throw your questions in the chat. I will start off with Karen.
Jody,
question.
Yeah.
Has the EIR taken into account? Oh, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Has the EIR taken into account the impact of rising sea levels for a massive building project built literally at... Is anyone?
Yeah, we didn't hear that last part. Can you say that again?
Yeah, totally. Has the EIR report taken into account the impact of rising sea levels for this large of a project built at the water?
Okay, again, your last part was out. So I think the question is, has the EIR taken into account the sea level rise?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Tanya and all. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So my understanding is, and before I attempt to answer any questions, let me preface it by saying, first of all, thank you for allowing me into this space. Also, I'm not the staff member who worked on the EIR. That person, his name is Pete Volman, who some of you, if you participated in or watched the Planning Commission meeting, he's the primary staff member who's responsible for the EIR. So I'm not a technical expert. I did not draft the EIR or work on it. So I'm able to answer questions generally. But then I also encourage you to, if you haven't already, to actually go through the document, which if you have the Adobe PDF reader, you can search through the document. Admittedly, it is a very massive document. It's in the thousands of pages, and even me, somebody who reads, 50 plus books a year, I certainly have not read the whole entirety of the EIR. But that said, the EIR, my understanding is, yes, it did analyze the potential sea level rise in the area. And my understanding is that is one of the benefits of the project, that it does factor in and build in potential sea level rise protection. So that information is in the EIR. And again, I encourage you to read through and use the search function with the term sea level rise, and you'll be able to find that information.
Thank you. Okay, Jody, next question.
Yeah, so another question, are there any funds that will come from the
Jody, you're going out again.
Structure bill that was passed that would be leveraged by Oakland?
Can you repeat that question? And for some reason you keep going in and out. So,
okay.
Yeah,
sorry about that. Maybe it's an internet problem. I'll read it again. Are there any funds that are coming from the federal government from the infrastructure bill that was passed?
So right now, I actually don't know that any of the funds were appropriated yet from the infrastructure bill. But what I can say is that we certainly are pursuing all dollars available to us to meet obligations that we, the city of Oakland, may have agreed to. And so you might have read the wonderful news that the city of Oakland was one of 2 California cities who were selected to receive a very highly competitive federal grant, the RAISE grant. We were awarded almost $15 million. And we will continue to seek other federal funds as they become available. And also might I add that the federal funds that we're seeking are not for the project site itself. It's for the surrounding offsite infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, bike lanes, et cetera, that we're seeking regardless of this project. And so you might have read through the city's announcement of the Town for All that has a detailed description of these projects that we, the city of Oakland, will be pursuing regardless of the Howard Terminal A's proposal. So go to the city of Oakland's webpage and type in Town for All, and that has more information about what I'm describing.
All right, great. We'll move on to another question. If Fisher is able to secure the necessary entitlements to build this ballpark village, what would prevent him from selling the team and flipping the property and its entitlements to another owner / developer at a tremendous profit? Note this practice has precedent in other downtown projects.
So I mean, I can't speak at all for Fisher what his intentions may or may not be. So I don't think it would be fair to all of you for me to speculate on some for a person who I've never even met him. So I honestly can't answer that question.
Okay, sounds good. So moving on to another question. What does the EIR say about the significant safety dangers to people related to having Southern Pacific RR crossings nearby?
Well, this is me answering from my layman's understanding that if you're talking that, so I know that railroad safety is an important consideration just for the sake of human life, as well as to not have any disruption to any of the trains. And so a component of this project, what's called one of the alternatives, is to build a pedestrian and bike bridge so that pedestrians and bicyclists can cross over the tracks safely. And then a second bridge would be built, the vehicle bridge, so that cars could pass over safely, and again, minimize any type of disruption. Furthermore, there would be also what's called at-grade improvements, where there would be barriers that would be constructed so that pedestrians would not be able to go over the tracks by foot. So these are in the EIR that I would just encourage you to use that search function and type in the specific terms that you're interested in learning more about, but that certainly was studied.
Mm-hmm. So a question from Naomi, what happened to the CBA?
Well, in terms of, I know that there's a lot of information out there that is, that concerns the community benefits. So for those, I see a lot of people on this who were involved in a very extensive, very public process to develop the recommendations that community members identified as being priorities for consideration into community benefits. And so from there, city staff, project staff, myself, as well as the project manager, have been working on doing further work on a community fund that would be used to provide a way to administer community benefits that were identified in those recommendations from that long process, as well as anything in the future. So in terms of what happened, nothing happened so much as the work is still continuing to be done. And so our consulting team is working on doing research on other community funds that exist so that we can get the framework for this community fund developed. And by that framework, it's not just like the actual fund itself, but it's also how, the how, not just the what, but the how. And so throughout the whole community benefits process and ongoing, community members, we have heard loud and clear two things that came through over and over again that is ingrained in us. Number one is that community benefits for this project should exist for the entirety of the project itself. And so it's a 66-year lease. And so community was very, very specific that community benefits should last for the entirety. Normally with community benefits just happen during the first phase, the construction phase, and then they just stop. Whereas community that were involved in this project said, no, they should last the entire 66 years. And second, we heard loud and clear that community wants to ensure that there's community involvement, oversight, enforcement, et cetera, that come with the community benefits. And so this community fund provides a way to work with the limitations, the financial constraints, the political constraints, all the constraints. It provides a way to fund the recommendations that exist for the needs right now, but then also looking to the future. So look at the City of Oakland's webpage, type in the community benefits, look at the project FAQs. It is outlined in there. And I'm also, I know that the focus of this has been on the EIR, so I'm happy to also to meet with stakeholders individually or speak to your associations, your clubs, whomever, to talk more about community benefits. Happy to do that.
Mm-hmm. And there was a clarification, a few people brought it up in the chat, that the question about Fisher was not about his intentions for selling it, but more so, is there anything preventing him? So this would be, I think a few people mentioned just any city ways of preventing him from selling. So not about his intentions, more about the environment that he's able to operate in.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that question. So I would feel more comfortable if, I'm sorry, is it Jody? Is that who's speaking? I would feel more comfortable, Jody, if you could send me that question, that I'd be able to ask that to the project manager, and I'd be happy to follow up with Councilmember Fife and Tanya and send a follow-up response, or if that question, if Councilmember Fife wants to ask that question at any of the upcoming public meetings about the project, then certainly that would be another way to get that question answered.
Okay, sounds great. For everybody, we are saving all the questions. So you attend the session, we have these questions saved. So another question came where Chris was asking, are there similar developments that would serve as examples of how this process is working and how the CBA is to be evaluated.
So to make sure, Chris's question, when saying the process, is it related to the community benefits process, or okay? So the question is there a way to evaluate or compare it to other similar processes? And then what was the second part of the question?
Is there a process for how CBA is judged by community folks? And Chris, feel free to clarify in the chat if you'd like to right now your question, but I'm assuming is there an evaluation process for the CBA?
Well, okay, so if we're talking about CBAs of the past, there definitely is literature on that. The Partnership for Working Families, if you go on their website, they have a lot of information about previous community benefits agreements. In terms of ways to analyze how the Howard Terminal community benefits, how effective they are, or how responsive they are, how adequate, et cetera, that would be something that as the community fund, if there would be some type of oversight body that would be comprised mainly of community members. It would be working to establish those metrics, establish the ways that the community members determine what it means for the community benefits to be working. And so that hasn't been done yet because we're still doing the work right now. But I definitely, if you don't mind, when you send me the other question about the question related to Fisher, actually, if you don't mind just sending me the questions from this event itself, then if I'm happy to post them as answers or responses to the project's FAQs, if that's what would be best. So please, I hope that answers the question, but if not, then let me know.
Yeah, and Sabir actually just asked a kind of question that maybe we could build off of this. Will there actually be a CBA agreement, or will parts of the CBA be negotiated separately? For example, jobs, housing, and environmental remediation.
Yeah, so what we're anticipating is that there would be the components of the community benefits would live within different documents, the documents that go forth for approval. So they would likely be attachments to the development agreement, the jobs policy. The Port of Oakland is actually responsible for working on the jobs policy. And so that would be a question that would live with the Port of Oakland and the City of Oakland. We would refer to that policy in our document. So right now, it's unlikely that there will be one legal binding document that would be called the Community Benefits Agreement, and instead it would live in the appropriate places within the overall project approval package.
Okay, sounds good. As Tanya mentioned, there are some parking related questions, and we have two comments. I'll bundle them together. So Katherine asks, AC Transit has said officially that they cannot provide the services needed by and mentioned in this project. They testified to this at the Planning Commission. How would the city deal with this? And a bit of a related question by Gay Cobb, what are the mitigations proposed related to West Oakland neighbors, parking, safety, traffic? So you can clarify in the chat, Gay, if that was what I guess the city is doing to mitigate parking and car safety.
Sure. So with regard to AC Transit, right now there continues to be discussions between the City of Oakland, AC Transit, and other relevant agencies to come to agreement solutions, et cetera. I myself am not part of those conversations. Therefore, I would request that you please include that question so that I can have it answered accurately. With regard to the question about what will be done to protect or preserve residential parking in adjacent neighborhoods, that's what it sounds like the question was. That would be our Department of Transportation would be introducing what's called residential parking permits, or RPPs, introducing that into neighborhoods that may not currently have them. So expanding that program. And what that does is residents who currently live there would have a permit, and vehicles that don't have that permit, if they park there, they would get some type of citation or a fine, or other consequences. And so the RPP program, not only would it be expanded on to neighborhoods, surrounding neighborhoods, but the hours would also likely be expanded to reflect the time of days that game attendees would likely be parking. So that's one of the ways in which residential parking would be protected. And then in terms of businesses, or where there's currently metered parking, for example, that would also be expanded. And there would be what's called dynamic pricing, which means that the prices would reflect, again, that demand of what likely would be game day attendees, in order to really decentivize them from parking on the street, because it might be cheaper for them to park in garages for that long period of time, to keep those meters parking available for visitors or patrons who are going to nearby restaurants. But just primarily the other way that parking or neighborhood parking, business parking would be preserved, is to really incentivize people to use public transportation who might be going to the waterfront ballpark district. And I have heard a few times that there are concerns, or there's a belief that that the site is not publicly, it's not accessible by public transportation. And I would strongly encourage you to just, hear out that this, the site itself, there are multiple modes by which people can access the site that doesn't involve them driving. So they can access the site if there are 3 BART stations that are about a mile distance away from the site that people can take. They could walk to the site from the BART, or if they have mobility issues, there would be shuttles that would transport people from the BART station to the site. There would be other means like scooters available. Bike lanes are going to be introduced, protected or buffered bike lanes to make it safer to bike to the site. So, it's important to look at what the anticipated transportation needs will be over 66 years, and finding ways to minimize vehicle traffic travel there, and take the other modes that are available. So, so that was a lot. I'll go ahead and stop. But there certainly the city of Oakland is definitely looking. Will within the transportation management plan have ways to protect the parking that Ms. Cobb just asked about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Jody, before you begin, we're going to allow just maybe a couple more questions because it's close to 7 o'clock and we want to allow people an opportunity to speak. So go ahead and just pick the last 2 questions, and then we will go into the comment portion.
All right. Since we only have a few comments left, I'll try to bundle some of the questions. So we've had a question that's come around what the estimated project revenues are. Again, just estimated expected project revenues from this project. And if there will be ongoing economic evaluation to demonstrate and track if Howard Terminal is actually generating revenue for the city to merit this 80% infrastructure investment. So questions around what the expected revenue is and if there's going to be evaluation, whether it's met.
Sure. Our financial consultants have run modeling, financial models to see what the projected revenues would be. I don't have that number committed to memory right now, but it is on the project page under documents. So before the night ends, I promise you, I will go ahead and look it up because I know exactly where to find it. But the project, the project is expected at full build out to generate revenue that would go to the city's general fund. So I will look up that information and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, sounds good. And the last question, which maybe is asking where this project is going as well, is like, did the A's agree and sign the term sheet approved by City Council? And then if not, what's the status on that?
Yes, so the term sheet that was approved by City Council, it did reflect a really mostly agreement between the city and the A's. But right now, in terms of signed document, everything is still ongoing. I really would feel more comfortable if that question was included as one that's passed along, that I would pass along to my boss. And it's because I want to make sure that you receive the correct answer. So can you please include that question when you send me the questions from this Zoom? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Totally.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. Also, if you guys have additional questions, feel free to send them to contact information that is on the website. Also, you can send a question to District3 at oaklandca.gov. All right, so we're gonna go into a comment period. Just wanted to reiterate, if you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. I'm going to unmute those in the order the hands I see raised. I'm going to apologize now because I'm a nice person and I like people, but I'm going to be really strict about that 1 minute time. So I have my stopwatch here. And what's going to happen is my timer is going to be set to 1 minute. And once that 1 minute is up, I'm going to mute you, even if it's in the middle of a sentence. I apologize, I am, but we want to make sure as many people as possible have an opportunity to speak, okay? So we're going to keep it strictly 1 minute. And Councilmember Fife is not going to comment or answer a question. So just make it a comment. If you have a question, submit the question via email and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can, okay? All right, so we're gonna begin. My little watch, the sound will go beep, 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 and then I'm going to mute you and go on to the next person, right? Right, okay. First speaker, I'm asking Aaron to unmute.
Good evening.
Hey.
Thank you for having me. I'm Aaron Wright, ILWU. I work with the port. Been working on this issue since 2019. And I got to tell you real quick, it's a real sham. They want $855 million from Oakland. That's just shy of $1 billion. And what are they going to get? What are we going to get for it? A ruined port. None of the port operators want this. Not the shippers, not the longshoremen, not the truckers, no one, not the train operators, because this will kill our port. We need the turning circle at Howard Terminal widened. They're already talking about not widening it. If they build this stadium with residents there, it's going to impact Oakland. Remember, all of the port commissioners and the city staff work under Libby Schaff, who has unquestioningly said that this will happen in Howard Terminal, no other option. They're going to take $855 million. That's how much we're going to go into debt. This is a
Okay. Sorry. We are going to ask Jennifer. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Okay.
Hi. First, I want to thank you for holding the space for us to speak. I'm a D3 resident, a member of the Community Health and Safety, Housing, and Transportation topic cohorts for the Howard Terminal CBA. I also canvassed and door knocked for Carol. I want to ask some very simple questions. What are we doing here? We're talking about the environment. So since we're talking about the environment, then why does Schnitzer Steel get to continue to pollute West Oakland? Why haven't they been evicted yet? Why does their billionaire money get to continue to fund the opposition? Everyone here needs to ask themselves, do I align with the community or do I align with polluters? We deserve public space and we demand open green space this project will provide. So please, I urge you to approve the FEIR and to approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you for keeping the time. Okay. Brian, asking you to unmute. Okay, go.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Brian Beveridge, co-director of the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project. I sat for 2.5 years on the leadership team for the Community Benefits Agreement, working directly with the city, the A's, Chinatown community, and the port. There's a couple things. I just like to know, for myself, I like to have enough evidence to make choices. And I haven't heard any actual evidence that the Howard Terminal ballpark will destroy the port. It's just sort of people's opinion or propaganda. And I think that's mostly a power play by the shipping industry. What I would really like to know, though, and I think it's not fair not to explain, what is the actual economic benefit?
Sorry, Brian. Feel free to send us a question. We can try to answer for you. Okay, next we have Robin Walker. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Tanya, how many hands do we have? We don't have a lot of hands raised.
Okay, so Brian, please raise your hand again. 2 minutes?
Let Brian finish his statement and give folks 2 minutes, and I'll go back and get Aaron and Jennifer. Well, Jennifer did amazingly well. But we'll go back and get Aaron to finish his statement. I want to actually hear people's complete thoughts if possible.
Okay.
But I also don't want to be here until midnight, but I do want to hear what people have to say.
Okay, let me look for Brian. I don't see him anymore.
We can keep it moving, and if he gets back on, then we can bring him back up, but we can just continue the queue and
so just let 2 minutes.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Robin.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I'm speaking to the FEIR. The Planning Commission accepted an inferior report with the understanding that the CEQAs, that's the California Environmental Question and Answer Sheet, is dated at 2016, without the knowledge that it has not been revised since then, and possibly they did not know what they were referencing. I urge the transparency of the affiliation of ESA, that's Environmental Service Associates. Those are the people who compiled the report. I observe that is a family and employee-owned business that does not represent the diversity of the city of Oakland. I urge the transparency of the Planning Commission itself as to whether they will be enhanced personally or professionally through their acceptance of this document. The language in the FEIR, words like may, like, unplanned, or under the 2040 plan is not, is planned by adjudication, but is not compulsory. are escapist words. In addition, they were repeatedly stated by the city planner, who, the main city planner, that all of the legal requirements were met. Statistically, the numbers are outdated and misleading. The final regional housing report used subsequent growth patterns starting in 2015. Language around the affordable housing excluded extremely low persons, that is 0 to 30%. In the table 4.12-5 on page 4.12.8.
Okay, Robin, please finish your sentence.
12.8, it addresses 50, 60, 70, and 120% AMIs for only one person. And the AMI was revised by HUD in HUD section 66932 at the end of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna ask Benjamin Larson to unmute.
Hi, Benjamin Larson. I'm a District 3 resident. Sorry, I would just like to urge you to support the Howard Terminal project. I think it's a good deal for Oakland and the West Oakland area. I know we've all been to Jack London Square. We can tell, we know it's not in a great condition. I think, that area should be developed for West Oaklanders and Oaklanders in general and everyone across the region to enjoy. We can't let polluters like Snitcher Steel, who the only community benefit they really offer is the pollution that they dump into the bay and our air. We can't let them, control that site forever. I think it should be developed for the benefit of West Oakland. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for staying in time. Next we have Nick Danoff. I'm gonna ask to unmute.
Hello, thank you so much, Council Member, for this meeting. Really appreciate it. I'm a D3 resident, and I'm a strong supporter of this proposal. I'd really strongly urge you to do everything possible to come to yes on this. I appreciate all the concerns that people have, and I'm confident that we can find a solution that will address each of them. The council, the city, is working very hard on that, and I have full faith that you will be able to address those concerns. Really, what I think of this is an opportunity to do something amazing. Oakland is not going to have an opportunity like this falling into its lap every year. This is a unique opportunity to revitalize the city, to bring new jobs, parks, a performance space, desperately needing housing, including hundreds of affordable units. All of these are net positives for us. And so we can look at all the downsides and all the concerns, but I'd really encourage us to weigh the positives that can come out of this, including all the tax dollars that can go to other desperately needed priorities of the city that simply would not come into us if we let the A's leave. Ultimately, I think what we're talking about here is the future of the city. And do we want to dream big and do something amazing for our city, for our residents? Or are we going to let narrow-minded concerns prevent us from seizing this amazing opportunity? I really hope we'll support it. I'm super excited about this. Thanks again, Councilmember, for holding this meeting.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask James Vann to unmute. James, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Councilmember Fife, for holding this town hall. Very important. I want to make 2 points. One, this site is very small. This development will be squeezed into a very small area and no room to expand. There's an article in the paper today in the East Bay Times stating that 3,000 trucks a day pass by this facility at 128 an hour, and we'll be adding 35,000 fans plus 3,000 or so residents to this mix. That's a recipe for disaster. The A's have a beautiful location at the present time. And they can demolish the present park if it doesn't serve them well and build a new one, but that's where they ought to be. This is going to be a disaster for the port and for Jack London Square. There are no studies that show that stadiums in cities bring in revenue. It's going to be a net loss. So it's not an economic engine. The last point I'd like to make is I would like to see someplace where the public can post so that there can be two columns. What are the cons for this project and what are the pros for the project side by side? I think the cons are going to outweigh the pros many, many times. And I wish that there was something like that, that citizens would have access to. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next, I'm going to ask Nancy Nadell to unmute.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Love and Ms. Fife, or Councilmember Fife. I am a District 3 resident, and it sounds to me like a bad deal financially for the city and taxpayers. The fellow who spoke before, or two fellows before me, said it was a good deal financially, but I haven't heard that at all. So I think that's what we need to hear. Are there tax dollars that will be produced by this project or will be paying for it? And when I was a council member, every stadium I read about, it was a loss to the city. This project doesn't have enough affordable housing, in my view, and certainly not at the level needed. There's negative environmental impacts from the traffic that we've heard about. Let's look at Schnitzer Steel at this time. We don't have to do this or the other. You know, if Schnitzer Steel is polluting the West Oakland community, deal with it. We don't need to do that or not do it because of a terminal. I feel we're in a state of emergency in District 3. We have thousands of homeless people living in the street, thousands of people with no housing. And this project I have to ask myself, will it help or hinder that emergency situation? And so far, it feels to me that it will hinder. That's all. Thank you again.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have Katherine Epstein. I'm asking you to unmute.
Thank you for holding this conversation. I'm a college professor in Oakland, and I study questions of urban studies and education studies. And I did some investigation with scholars who know more than I do about port development. And I tried to find anyone in the world who had any case that they could cite of port property being used for residential development right next to waterfronts. There are no such cases, according to those I have asked, and I'm asking the city to provide us an example where it has been successful to place residential development next to the operations of a port. In general, the entire body of knowledge about urban affairs says that it isn't possible to put industrial development next to residences because the residences invariably find problems with the industry and they want to reduce the hours. They want to reduce the noise because they're living there. We need this port. The thing that differentiates us from Detroit and some of the Midwestern cities is we have an operating port which cannot be moved because it's on the water. They can't move it to a low-income country. It has to be in Oakland because we have water in Oakland. So for us to give up this thing that is so valuable to the working class people in this community is to give up on having working class people in this community. And I don't want that. San Francisco is already San Francisco. And I do believe that the billionaires have a great interest in changing Oakland to be a city that is compatible for them because of its location, its weather, and its beauty. And I don't want that. And I believe it is extremely important to reject this kind of project because it will hurt the port. We know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and next we have Sabir Lockett. And
Okay, hey, thank you, Councilmember Fife and Tanya. I'll just get straight to the point. Bottom line, A said they were going to pay for the CBA, turned around and reneged on that promise. With that, developer should contribute to, beyond contributing to the Port Social Justice Fund for construction jobs training, should also contribute at least $500,000 a year for the first 10 years of the project, for a total of $5 million to the West Oakland Job Resource Center and other designated workforce training centers towards job training, placement programs, and operations. Also, prior to operations on an annual basis, all employees on on-site jobs to be provided to the City of Oakland or West Oakland Job Resource Center, projections of numbers, occupations, skill level, projected wages for positions to be filled in compliance with fair chance laws. Housing. Affordable housing should be deeply affordable. All on-site affordable housing at 60% AMI or below, with significant portions of units for housing with extremely low incomes. The initial financing for both on-site and off-site for affordable housing units should come from developer and upfronted by the developer, so that these housing measures are supported and protect families in the early years of the project when the placement pressures will be most acute. Also, community fund will not establish an oversight body. We need an actual oversight body with compliance reports and liquidated damages significant enough to compel the developer to comply with all agreements entered into. Thank you.
thank you. Next, we have Rita Look. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi. Yeah, I live in West Oakland. Sorry, I didn't write anything out, and so I'll try to, I have a lot of thoughts about this. First of all, I did a little research, and San Diego was in the same boat. They built a stadium down in their downtown area where there wasn't good rail service or public transportation to the site. And what they did down there was a regional coordinated effort, so that when somebody would buy a ticket to a game, they would have a free pass on the commuter rail. And I don't see any of that happening here. I don't see any of that coordination or other agencies or other areas saying, oh, put a parking lot on a remote location in our area and then have shuttles. I don't see any real ideas, except for what Veronica said, is people can take scooters to the stadium. And when she says things like that, it makes me really worry about this project, because I can imagine sitting in this little island surrounded by freeways and being polluted because it's a massive parking lot on the freeways, trying to get to the Ubers and the Lyfts. There's no parking there. So there's not even a BART stop there. It is mind blowing to me that, number one, you don't get the rail separation. I can't imagine that won't affect the port. And I mean, I am completely, if this project were thought out and people had good ideas on it, on how to get all these massive people. At the other location, you've got 2 freeway exits. You have the BART stop right there, and still you get a massive parking lot on the freeway when people are getting there and then leaving the game. And I don't understand how people think the people are going to get to the stadium. I mean, I haven't heard any good ideas except for walking scooters, or I just don't understand. I don't see a good plan for that.
Okay,
my concern is the pollution.
Rita, you've over time for 2 minutes.
Okay.
Please complete the sentence. And all right. Okay, thank you. And also, since we are 7:22, I'm going to close the queue for the speaker. So Helen Duffy is going to be our last speaker. So no more raising of the hands. Okay, guys. All right. Next we have Anthony McNeil. unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not going to go on script. I was born in West Oakland, Campbell Village area since 1962. I'm still a resident of this area. And for all the people that's talking about the port, the Longshoremen, all my kids got asthma. My mom died of cancer. My aunt died of cancer. I got relatives and friends throughout this community who kids got cancer, asthma. These ports done killed us since I was born in this area. All it was destruction, all this industrial smoke, and I mean, all the stuff that's been happening in this community since I was born, 60s, 70s, 80s, has been nothing but destruction. And so for the people who was proactive fighting for the port to continue to kill and destroy our communities, like, shame on you. Like to beautify our community with a stadium, I mean, that's fine. But to constantly promote port activity and industrial happenings in West Oakland after countless and thousands of residents in this area have been killed by asthma and cancer, that's sick. And Nancy, you know that. You and your husband fought for this. And so we know what Swisher Steel is doing in our community amongst other companies in the port. We just need to stop it. Truck traffic, I mean, it's been happening since I was born here. And we didn't know about it then in the 60s and 70s. But our kids is paying the price, and our mothers and fathers are paying the price for all of this stuff that's been polluted in the West of Cypress area. So yeah, we don't need that.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. Next, I'm asking David Peters to unmute.
Thank you, Brother Anthony. I too was born in West Oakland in the mid 60s. And I'm sure you, like me, remember when Acorn neighborhood was destroyed, when 14th and Broadway was flat ground, and or know about the history of non-investment, disinvestment, redlining in West Oakland. And Brother Van, and I appreciate you, you're a lion in this community. And when you talk about those 350,000 trucks a year that come out of Howard Terminal, if nothing else comes from this project but to move that truck traffic down into the port property at the Roundhouse property and at the Oakland Army base, as described in the EIR, this is a win. You know, as Naomi Schiff said, you know, that's public land, and the citizens of the state of California are entitled to access to that land. Tear those gates down, give West Oakland a park. You know, not only Brooklyn Basin isn't the only people that deserve to have a park, we deserve to have it too. The federal government is about to spend billions of dollars to dredge the estuary to increase the capacity for super container ships. The Marine, they're going to expand the basin for that. The port has gotten billions of dollars of tax money, and what have we got in West Oakland but pollution and death? They have given us no community benefits. They have given us no affordable housing. The global oligarchs that run the global marine industry have extracted profits from that port and then given us nothing in return. They have done wonderful employment for the unions down there. The ILWU have been radical fighters for justice and freedom from South Africa to America. And it's important that those port jobs are preserved. And we can see by the recent $200 million grants that were given to the port that port is going to continue to grow and thrive. This is an opportunity to see the Coliseum developed by SEG. And let us not, you have Schnitzer Steel's money, try to force Fisher over to the Coliseum and impose their will upon Brother Bobbitt and everybody else. I want to see a fair deal. There's no deal on the table. There's no way to evaluate whether this is a good deal or not. I am suspicious, however, of the city's ability to administer any CBA. There's $4 million sitting in the community fund from the Oakland Army base redevelopment that has not been released to the Community Oversight Committee that is supposed to do that. It is a grave concern.
David,
we saw 50 million. What can I make two more seconds? As a member of As a member of the steering committee, we put in $50 million specifically for ownership opportunities for longtime and displaced Black West Oaklanders. That was taken out in the council resolution. We need to restore that. This is about reparative investment for Black West Oakland. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the speaker, and those of you who are wondering who's next, the next speaker is Nathan Peterson, Naomi Schiff, and Henry Hitz. Okay, Nathan, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, yeah, thanks for holding this space for us. I just want to say, some folks have already said it, but, without having any sort of economic impact studies on these types of stadiums, it appears, all evidence, there's not really much evidence, but all the evidence points that they're not as economically positive as people like to portray them as. And for us as a city to spend nearly $1 billion to give a billionaire a stadium is too much. And I think Oakland has a lot better things we could be spending $800 million on than providing a stadium for a billionaire, for a giant corporation. Yeah, I second a lot of what other folks have said. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nathan. And just a reminder, Helen Duffy is our last speaker in the queue because we are already starting to get a little over time. So next, I'm going to allow Naomi Schiff to unmute, and after her is Henry Hitz and Aaron Wright.
Hello, District 3 resident for, I don't know, more than 4 decades. A couple of points. First of all, please, people, you aren't probably going to read the 3,500 pages of EIR. May I ask you to look at the mitigations? The mitigations are the place where the city or the EIR preparer is trying to say what would make the effects less dire. And many of the mitigations are worded very badly, and they say things like, maybe we will if we can, but we won't commit to fixing X or Y. Please read the mitigations and send your comments to Carol and the whole city council. It is very important because the mitigations are where the rubber hits the road in an EIR, should they decide to accept the EIR. Second point, it seems like what we're saying with this infrastructure district is that most of the property tax that is generated will be absorbed by things that benefit the project itself. And so my question becomes, how does this help Oakland at large? Third point, and this is my own private crazy point, but I got to say it. Any professional women playing baseball, note that most of the people who have supported this stadium happen to be of the male persuasion. Well, I think there's a reason for that. And it has something in my mind to do with the fact that women don't find any acceptance in this sport. And I resent spending public money on a sporting stadium that does not allow women to play. I realize that's a minor point because this project is not a stadium project. It is a real estate project. And the stadium is the shiny hood ornament that the city is using to sell it to us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next speaker is Henry Hitz. After that, it's Aaron Wright and Susan Ransom. Henry, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi. Yeah, Henry Hitz. I'm a long-term District 3 resident, long-term education activist. I want to point out that the school district is voting this week to close some number of 5 to 9 schools. And I think this is all part of the same business plan for Oakland. Jerry Brown said that he wanted the Bay Area to share the pain. And what he meant by that was he wanted the poor people moved out of Oakland. And that's what's been done. That's what's being done. And this stadium project with 3,000 units of luxury housing is just another aspect of that gentrification, privatization thing that the billionaire class is foisting on Oakland. And I believe the longshoremen. I think that the port really is important, and largest employer of Black people in Oakland. And one other point, I wonder how many Black people will be hired in the construction industry to build this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next is Aaron Wright. After him is Susan Ransom, and then Melody Davis. Aaron, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, thanks for letting me come back on. You know, John Driscoll, the former port commissioner, worked with the Port Efficiency Task Force to do many things to help West Oakland from the pollution from the port. Cold ironing, plugging in the ships to electricity, greening up the equipment that we use. We have hybrids, you know, did a lot to put parking in Howard Terminal itself for trucks to commute the containers out of the city during off hours and not in rush hour traffic. These measures helped West Oakland, okay? He was forced out by this process in 2019 to get the Howard Terminal project. Remember, all of the employees in the port are under Mayor Schaaf. She's pro Howard Terminal project. All the employees in the city staff are under Mayor Schaaf. They're not going to give you a counter argument to this port project. The EIR, there were 400 comments made for the EIR, and this EIR was set to be approved before the Christmas season, which makes it extremely hard for us to review, but they didn't address any of the 400 comments that were put in there. Basically, it's a plan to plan. There's no language in there to force the A's to do anything concrete, okay? You're looking at basically a giveaway. From the beginning, they said they would work with us, the port, to make a compatible port. They said community benefits. They said they would give affordable housing. And for 3 years, they've been saying that and talking with people, but have done none of it. In the EIR, there is no concrete. They've gone back on that on their term sheet. They won't agree to it. They don't agree to affordable housing. They don't agree to community benefits. None of it. So no to this plan, no to $1 billion to A's. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is Susan Ransom, then Melody Davis, and then Kristen Loomis. Susan, I'm asking you to unmute.
All right, for the Susan Ransom SSA terminal, for those that are downers on the port, we all showed up to work every day during a pandemic, got goods to your households, grocery stores, retail stores, and small businesses, including Oakland, which still doesn't cover the wide scope of port business, and kept the economy fluent, not to mention the millions of dollars we are putting into environmental upgrades, which somehow never gets recognized or publicized. Crazy. You should be happy for that. All we are asking is to put that off the EIR certification vote, make sure that the mitigations are thoughtfully incorporated prior to putting our Oakland residents at risk from taking the tax hit and tragedy happening with all the safety measures missing from the EIR. It's not about the A's, it's about the port residents in Oakland. Why wouldn't anyone on this call want that? By the way, I am also an Oakland resident and a voter. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, next is Melody Davis. After Melody is Kristen Loomis and Derek Muhammad. Melody, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hello, my name is Melody Davis. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hey, you know, it's really something how what fisher people doing? For the longshoremen people, for instance, they took off 10 miles from the turning basin. So they go and drag down there to put wider ships to go out there with the cargo. How they going to turn? They took 10 miles away. That's wrong. That's really wrong. That's just like red light, green light. You know what I'm saying? And then secondly, they have already given out, see, they're doing a lot of preparedness already. They send in the Teamsters / Mafia to come in there and try to do a stronghold on the longshoremen and underbid them of pay. Then they gave eviction notice to a private firm of truckers. Those truckers have to do they don't get paid like a 9 to 5. If they don't unload a load or haul, they call it, they don't get paid. Those people are working people paying taxes, but they can't pay taxes and feed their babies if they don't have a job. Now, why did they give them eviction notice? Everything they've done, they pre-doing it, like Henry was saying, getting us all blacks out any kind of way they can. The closing up schools. They know doggone well those kids can't go from one area to the other end because of gang affiliation. You're putting our kids in harm's way. We are almost at loss. What happened to the affordable housing? Kara Fife is for miles for better housing. I know that's on your heart. It's not there. You guys have a city ordinance to take what you guys are supposed to do. Women Chen, rest her soul, she even talked about it. What do you guys, you're going to have $1 million homes and they're going to tell us and dictate to us when Amtrak can go through there, when the longshoremen can work. They're going to be dictating. They're going to have a lot of Karens and barbecue Beckys out there. And someone's going to get killed.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Kristen Loomis. And then after that is Derek Muhammad and Peter Brown. Kristen, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, thank you. I'm also a D3 resident. What I would like to say is that I'm just looking at the history of the Bay Area. San Francisco used to be a working port and they gave it up in order to become a Disneyland. And it's kind of worked for them, that's fine, but Oakland has inherited being a working port. If we give this up now, if we decide that we're going to have baseball and fancy houses and whatever, we are going to see the port slip away to someplace like Richmond, which probably needs a new base now that they're working on getting rid of coal. I would like to encourage Oakland to remain a working port. I'd also like to bring up the problem of how many people are going to be killed crossing those train tracks. I understand that we're supposed to be mitigating that. I just don't believe it. Once people start watching baseball and drinking beer, we are going to have deaths on that railroad track. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next we have Derek Muhammad. After that is Peter Brown and Helen Duffy. Derek, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Go ahead.
Good evening. There are so many negatives that I can say about this project, but I really wanted to talk about very briefly the CBA process that I was a part of. That CBA process was a farce, to say the least. Instead of negotiating with the community in good faith, Yays made monetary contributions to nonprofit organizations in West Oakland to buy their support. And that should not be considered support for this project. One of the things that the economic development cohort pushed for, because there's no real jobs for the community on this project. There are no jobs for the community at all on this project. We pushed for the building trades to open up the apprenticeship programs to the Black community, because we understood that while there'll be construction jobs and the trade organizations will boast of these jobs and the hiring of locals those locals won't include African Americans because in order to get on the project, you have to be first a member of the trade organizations. So I don't want to keep going on and on. I just want to say, let's take another look at what we're doing. It's a bad deal. There's no jobs for the community, and it won't benefit us. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Peter Brown and our last speaker, Helen Duffy. Peter, I'm asking you to unmute. Go ahead.
Hey there. Peter Brown, retired teacher at Laney College. First of all, I have no problem with the port except that it is not publicly owned. It is a privately controlled service organization for giant corporations and the billionaires who own them. But more to the question of the ballpark, many detailed questions are being raised about this project. And we had almost exactly those same questions with the same answers, all negative, at Laney when the A's tried to build a stadium on Laney's land. Everything came out negative. All the promises turned into water. They just disappeared. And what we found is that the A's owners are not baseball fans. They're not A's fans. They're real estate speculative investors. And when they get ready to sell the team or move it, they will, and they'll find the way to do it. We have to understand, as we came to understand in the Peralta College District, that, and the question was asked, do we want investment in Oakland or not? Investment no longer equals a benefit to the community. Profits no longer equal a benefit to the community. Corporations are sucking money out of the community. And when they want to build something like this, it's not to bring good things to the people of the community. It's to change who is the community. It's to bring people in who they can make money off of because they're making good wages for the tech companies, and it's to make lots of money. So we had to confront that at Laney, and we came up with the negative answer, and that's why this project is going on. Or some people think this project was always the ultimate aim, and the A's were the Laney Stadium was a smokescreen to get them to this. Finally, the people who are organizing against school closings, which I'm working on, and the people who are organizing against evictions, and I have homeless friends and homeless students who were evicted by Don Fisher, and people fighting the stadium are fighting the same groups of companies for the same reason, because investors no longer equal a benefit for the community. They own teams because they didn't pay their taxes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our last speaker, Helen Duffy. Helen, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, thank you. And I don't have a lot to add. I've heard so much tonight that makes me proud to be standing in opposition with so many people who really understand the problems with this ballpark. I am a District 3 resident of 30 years, and I have been very concerned about many different aspects, the giveaway but just to focus on the EIR, that traffic situation and the impacts for the residents who live there are going to be huge. Anyway, I don't want to repeat what people have said, but many people have said it well. This EIR is something of a, it's pretty fake, and it should never have been gotten to this point. I want to ask that Carol and that the council oppose this project on behalf of the people who are residents of Oakland currently. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Council Member 5. Do you have any other comments? Or I see there is one person with their hand raised. Do you want to allow Mr. Reyes to speak?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, John, I ask you to unmute. John, are you there? Asking you to unmute. John Reyes, calling you once, calling you twice. All right, I don't know, maybe his hand raised is by mistake. Okay, that will be it. Councilmember Fife, do you have any closing remarks? Thank you everyone for speaking and sharing your thoughts. Go ahead, Kat.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And I'm not going to keep people. I really just wanted to hear some of the commentary from people from the district and see what folks had to say. Once again, I am listening deeply to the people in the community. I've done some other outreach in terms of surveys and done door-to-door, knocking on neighbors and residents of District 3's homes to find out what they think about this project and other things happening in District 3. And I'm getting an understanding just of the various viewpoints and what some of the pain points are and what I need to do more investigation on. I will say that the item is coming before City Council to vote on the the final EIR on February 17th. And I encourage people, if you are interested and you think that the entire council needs to hear what you expressed to me today, to try to show up. It is not at a convenient time. If you're a worker and you have traditional work hours, because the meeting will be held Friday, February 17th at 9:30 a.m. So I wanted to get that information out there. It will be published soon in local newspapers, but it will be the vote on the draft EIR. So please email me at District3, that's the number 3 at oaklandca.gov, and tell me what you think I should do regarding this vote on February 17th. And you can just put it in the subject. So, I can really understand quickly what you're suggesting that I do. I do think that Mr. Van had a good idea of putting up the pros and cons on a website. So I will work on doing that on my website, just so people can see, like, and column by column, what the pros and cons are for this particular project. But once again, I'm formulating my decision based on the facts and based on the constituents that live in District 3, who are the voters for what they'll have to live with for the next 66 years. So drop me a line, let me know. I appreciate your time. I'm not going to hold you so you can get back to your Friday evening, but thank you to everyone who showed up and lent their voice to this process this evening. I appreciate you all.
Thank you. And so that will be it. I'm going to close the meeting. I'm seeing the questions. I'm going to try to save the chat. Definitely saving the town hall. And if you email District3 at oaklandca.gov, I'm going to try to get you the recording. Okay.
And we should also work to answer the questions that are answerable. Some of the questions are difficult and very detailed, but I am leaving my office cell phone right here. I said I would do that. Please understand, do not invite me for coffee and scones because you will blow up my voicemail, but that is my office cell in the chat. So give me a call and let me know if you have any more details to share, and we're gonna call it an evening. Thanks, everybody.
Great, thank you.